I've been. Dreams are seeds we plant, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small but shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat. Every step you're blazing trails. Invented journey never fails. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small but shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small but shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small but shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Your time is now, your stars align. Your time is now, your stars align.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Paige Arnof-Fenn. And Paige started her journey going to high school in New York, or in New Orleans, not New York. And then while she was growing up, her dad and grandpa were both in commercial banking, so she always thought that's what she would go into. And then went and got a degree in economics and was a financial analyst on Wall Street for a period of time. Went back and got an MBA, and then went into marketing and worked for some larger companies. And then got into the dot-com era and startups before starting her own firm after the housing market crashed. It's been doing it ever since. So with that much as a quick introduction, welcome on the podcast, Paige.
Thank you for having me, Devin. I'm excited to talk today.
Hey, excited to have you here and on the podcast. So I just gave just a quick run through to a much longer journey, but why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit? So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started growing up in New Orleans. I keep wanting to say New York for some reason. New Orleans, and going to high school there.
New Orleans is a very fun place to grow up. You know, I moved there when I was 13 years old and was a little bit nervous, moving for 8th grade. It's a tough time for a kid who has been, I'd been in the same school with the same kids through 7th grade. So it was a little nervous, but it ended up being a really fun place to be a high schooler. My very first weekend, ended up at a bar with my new friends. And I think my parents at that point they were not nervous to move, but I think after I got home from my first weekend of partying with my new friends, it was a brand new world. But I lived to tell the tale. And when I got to college, I had pretty much seen all the craziness that you can imagine. So my first year at college was not much of a shock at all. I think a lot of kids go away and drink for the first time, but that's just not the way it works when you grow up in a place where, Mardi Gras and fun is just part of the culture. But I always, yeah, as you said, I always thought I'd go into business. That my dad and both my grandfathers were in banking, and I just thought that was the path I was going to be on. And I took economics classes. I was really good at it. And when I graduated in the mid 80s, Wall Street was kind of a big path for a lot of college kids. Michael Douglas had just won the Oscar for the first Wall Street movie. I saw it my senior year in college and was enamored and decided that I was going to take a little bit of a deviation from commercial banking, and I did investment banking for 2 years. It was very interesting, really hard work, but I didn't really love it. So I did go back to business school and I
Just
rebranded
curious,
myself.
just out of or before, finding out you didn't love it, it happens as far as, going into an area, but what made you decide to pivot or go in that direction initially?
Well, it's actually a good story. So, a girlfriend that I had made at the bank, we were in different departments. We were both going back to business school, and we were traveling in Europe the summer between when we finished our job and started our grad school. And she said to me, you know, "Are you going back to the bank after we graduate?" And I said, "Oh my goodness, I sure hope not." That was just not what I thought it was going to be. And she said, "You were so good at it. The money was great." And she definitely wanted to go back into investment banking. And I said, "I got to find another path." And she said, "I just don't understand. No one's going to pay you as well as, this was before the hedge funds and venture capital were kind of a lucrative path for new recruits." And I said, "Well, the money was good, but there were only three things in the job that I ever enjoyed doing." And she said, "What? What did you like?" And I said, "When we closed a transaction, whether you helped a company get bought or sold or raise money, sell stock, at the end of the transaction, there was always a closing dinner for everybody that was involved on the client side and on the bank side. And because I was the junior person on the team, I had to plan the dinner, get a deal toy, some item to commemorate the deal that we all worked on. And I had to do an ad. They were called tombstone ads, those kind of boring ads you do in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times to let all the market know that the transaction had been successfully closed. And she said to me, "Paige, I don't know why you've always thought of yourself as a finance person. Everything you like in that job is marketing. It's not finance." And I had never taken a marketing class in college. I didn't know what marketing really was. And she said, "What you like is event planning, like planning dinners, promotion, getting the deal toy, and advertising, running ads in the newspaper. You should be a marketing person. I don't know why you thought you were going to be in finance. Everything you love is marketing." And I said, "Well, great to know, but I guess I'll have to figure that out in grad school." Well, as luck would have it, my first semester in business school, there was a required marketing class, and wouldn't you know, I got the top grade in the class. And I did love it. It's like it came so naturally to me. And then I got a summer internship at Procter and Gamble, and they're maybe the most successful marketing company in the world for consumer products. Every category they compete in, they're number one, and sometimes also number one and number two. And I had a great summer internship. They made me an offer to come back a year later when I graduated, which I did. I stayed for 3 more years, and it was just a career that I really loved. It didn't pay as well, but it was really fun, and I really did feel like it played to my personal strengths. And so I've been in marketing ever since, and my marketing career has basically been in three chapters. My first chapter was doing the big corporate, consumer products jobs, Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola, very recognized brands with big budgets on a big stage globally. But then I got bitten by the dot-com bug in the mid to late 90s when the internet started to take off. I left my big corporate job at Coke and joined my first startup as the head of marketing. And about a year and a half later, that company went public and was sold to Yahoo.
No, just curious, kind of what, whether you want how deep running in details, but what was that initial .com or that startup, or what did
So
they do, or what was it geared towards?
it was called Launch Media, launch.com, and it was a way to discover new music online. I was really into pop culture. And if you remember the game Trivial Pursuit, one of the categories was like entertainment and pop culture. I was definitely the friend you wanted to answer those questions. I was always into movies and books and music. Like I loved anything related to celebrity and magazines, and I was just kind of a media junkie. And so it just seemed like a really fun place to throw myself into. But when I told my mom and my boss that I wanted to leave Coca-Cola to go join a company that no one had ever heard of before, that, didn't have uh, any budgets close to Coca-Cola or P&G. I think they all thought I was having a nervous breakdown and just needed a vacation because I was working too hard. But I said, no, this sounds fun and exciting. And up until that point, going to good colleges, good business schools, having jobs that everybody knows about, I was so risk averse. And I figured if I tried this new thing and it was a bust, I was still pretty young at that point. I was in my mid 20s. And I thought, I just have to do this. If I don't give it a try, I may regret it the rest of my life. And as luck would have it, the company, we raised, significant money, tens of millions, not hundreds of millions, but we raised money. We threw it into marketing. The marketing worked. We went public back in the day. We were sold to Yahoo. So it was like a .com survivor. It became Yahoo Music, and it was really fun. And instead of being kind of one of the young people in my corporate jobs at the startup, I was older than the two guys who founded it. My team was young, and it, compared to a corporate job where you have to dress up in a suit every day and it's very formal, with the startups, internet 1.0, people wore shorts or jeans to work. Everyone on my team had tattoos and body piercing, and they'd bring their dogs to work. I mean, it was just such a different environment than I had grown up in, but we were having a ball. And people really, um they couldn't believe I'd had so much corporate experience, because that was unusual in the startup community. And for me to be able to leverage all the things I had learned, but not getting kind of bogged down with all the hierarchy. When you're in a corporate environment, when you do market research, it can take 6, 9, 12 months, and you're talking to thousands of people because, at Coke and P&G, they wanted to be statistically significant. And so everything took a long time, and you'd have to write a memo to your boss, and then the boss would pass the memo to his boss, and then everything was just a chore, and it just took forever. In the startup community, we were scrappy. I mean, we'd come up, my team would meet in the conference room in the morning, everybody would show up with their coffee. We were in Los Angeles, 5 blocks from the ocean in Santa Monica. We'd have all these questions for our target audience. We'd meet in the morning, come up with a bunch of things we could kind of go to the strand on the beach during lunch and intercept anybody that looked like they were part of our target audience. which was like 18 to 24-year-old males predominantly, that looked a lot like the people on my team. They had body piercing, they had tattoos, they were with their dogs on the beach. And we'd say, hey, can we ask you a few questions, and we'll give you a CD or a t-shirt or a hat. And they'll come over, and we'd have a clipboard, and we'd show them some stuff and ask them, what do you like, this or this? What's better, this or this? And so we'd spend an hour or two on the beach at lunch during lunch hour collecting data. We'd come back to the conference room in the afternoon based on the statistics of what we all, we were all at different places. We'd compare notes. And then before we left that night, we'd throw some new things up on the website to see which one got the highest click through. And then the next morning, we'd come in with our coffee, we'd tally up the votes. And based on that, we would make changes the next day. And then we would put something new on the website before we went home. So, the turnaround time was literally hours a day, not months. With internet companies, if you waited 6 months to react, the market would have moved so much, it would be irrelevant. And it was just so much fun and very exciting. And we were moving at a very fast pace. And I loved the fact that I had had such great training at these big companies, but I could do like the executive summary for my team and say, all right, here's the logic behind it. Let's ask the question in a very objective way. So we're not leading the witness. I learned how to do things properly, but it didn't need to be statistically significant. If we stopped 50 people at lunch today and we didn't get the reaction we wanted, we could stop 50 more people tomorrow and ask the question better or try something new based on what we learned the night before. So
So
that
now,
pace.
so on, kind of along those lines, just to kind of continue on with the story or the progression and the phases, so over kind of what period of time were you in kind of the startup life and the dot-com and kind of where did things go from there?
So basically, I left my corporate job in 97, and my first startup was from 97 to 99, so not even 2 years. Then I did another startup for less than 2 years. And then I did another startup for less than 2 years. So these were really quick, things were moving fast at Internet 1.0. This was before the kind of bubble burst. And I left my third, so all three had good exits. I made a little money 3 times. I call them my three base hits. I did not work for Facebook or Google or LinkedIn. I'm not Sheryl Sandberg. I didn't make $2 billion, but I made a little money 3 times, had a ball, learned a ton. But then 9/11 happened.
Hmm.
And when that happened, you're old enough maybe to remember too, but marketing budgets got slashed across the board. The market dropped, hundreds of points, which back then was a very big deal. I mean, this week the market dropped over almost 900 points. Now we don't even blink, but back then it was a huge deal. Companies wanted to conserve cash. They were worried they'd never be able to raise money again. So almost overnight, all the marketing budgets across the board got slashed. And because I had run marketing at, big companies and successful startups, all three of those startups were venture backed, private equity. So I had a lot of great relationships in LA and on the East Coast. The second two startups were in the Boston area. I just knew a lot of people in the startup community. So after 9/11, when things got slashed, people came out of the woodwork reaching out to me saying, hey, we really need marketing help. We have a product in the pipeline, or we've got a big trade show coming up, or I've got a new startup that needs a logo, a tagline, a website. Can you help me? You've helped me before. I need some help right now. And my first instinct, honestly, was that, like, I'm not really a consultant. I never worked on the agency side. I was the client, I was the chief marketing officer. I'm like, I don't really think, I'm terrible at PowerPoint. And they were like, Paige, we don't need PowerPoint. We need someone who can roll up their sleeves and get the job done. I'm like, well, that I can do. And it just so happened that all my favorite people that I had worked with earlier in my career had all just been laid off. So everyone was available. And so I had people, I had projects, and I just started putting them together. I never wrote a business plan. I had no intention of starting a business. Like if you had met me in college or grad school, I wanted to be Meg Whitman. I wanted to be a Fortune 500 CEO. I wanted to run a big company, a big brand. But then I got enamored with startups and I saw like these small companies are fun, they're exciting, they move fast. And so I thought I can help these people and I know great people who can help them with me. I called the women the marketing mavens. I called the guys the marketing moguls. For short, I named it Mavens and Moguls. I did a quick and dirty survey monkey online and the name stuck and we were off and running. I built the website over a very short period of time with a college buddy of mine who was learning how to do programming. She did the coding, I wrote the copy, and we were up and running. And that was like more than 24 years ago. I never, all those jobs before this, my longest job was 3.5 years. So it's crazy to me that I've now worked for myself so much longer than I ever lasted working for anyone else. And the truth is I'd be totally unemployable now if I had to go back and work for anybody. But luckily the business continues to do well and I'm still having fun.
Well, that's awesome. Sounds like it's been a great opportunity, a good path that you've found, and it's worked out well. So you say over the course of 25 years, so kind of walk us through, not a, don't have 25 years to walk the whole thing, but kind of walk us through the progression of the business. Kind of, was it one where it was a rocket ship to the top and just more money than you knew what to do with, raining down from the skies, or was one where there was a lot of ups and downs, or or there was roller coasters, or teetering on the verge of bankruptcy, or somewhere in between? But kind of walk us through that progression a bit.
So the first year, I really had like I said, I didn't write a business plan. I started the company out of the third floor of my house, hung out a shingle. We were completely virtual. This was way before COVID. And because I had worked at these global companies and I made friends from around the world in college and business school, I had a really great network. So the first kind of handful, dozen people were all people I had worked with in a previous life. And then as we got new business where I needed more experts, I just reached into my network and we found more people. I never posted for a job on LinkedIn or Monster or anything like that. It was all through my personal network.
Hmm.
So the first year, very low six figures. We were just trying to figure it out, honestly. And then the second year we quadrupled, and the third year we tripled, and the next year we doubled. So the base kept getting bigger, but the growth rate kind of leveled off a little bit. But I was shocked we were growing as fast as we were. Um, all the original clients, we worked, as I said, with a lot of venture capital firms, a lot of private equity folks. So they all had portfolios of businesses they had invested in. So when we helped one portfolio company and it worked out great, the guy who sat on the board of one of his companies would have two or three other projects and he'd say, you know what you just did for that company A? I need you to do the same thing for companies B and C. And then maybe the people that were running those companies after they had an exit, they would go to another company and they'd call me and say, "Hey, I met a new startup. Remember what you did last time? I need you to do it again over here." So we kind of grew organically. It wasn't anything. I always say I did not do it strategically. It was really opportunistic. I just knew good people. They had problems I could help fix, and we just grew with them, which is a great way to start a business, frankly. I really before I even admitted I was starting a company, I had clients like, you know, saying, we need more. Can you do more? So I had people in 14 cities around the country. I had people in major metro areas overseas. So we ended up with about 4 dozen independent contractors working under the Mavens and Moguls umbrella. And we had clients in Mexico and Canada, in the Middle East, in the Far East, in Europe, all over the world. And so when the Great Recession hit, when COVID hit, um, we were already virtual. We had very low overhead. We could be very scrappy and, our clients struggled a lot at the beginning of COVID because they didn't know how to work in a virtual or hybrid environment, but we were experts at that point. So it's been a wild ride, super fun. And the great thing is when you've got low overhead and you've got a really nimble team, you don't have to take on work to cover your rent or your overhead. People only get paid when they're working. And so my third year in business, Harvard Business School wrote 2 cases on my company as a new model of success because people outsourced their bookkeeping, their accounting, their legal work, their tax work, but they didn't really outsource marketing. They might hire an ad agency or a PR firm, but they
Mm.
didn't outsource marketing. That was always perceived to be a little too close to the vest. You didn't want to outsource your brand. But now, I mean, fast forward, look at, they call it the sharing economy with Airbnb and all these companies where you share your house, your car, your boat, your sporting equipment. We were kind of a pioneer in the sharing economy. So now, people don't even, they don't think twice about using a marketing firm. We might be a virtual marketing department for a bunch of different companies, but now it's just a, normal thing. It's not that big of a risk anymore. So,
Oh,
you
makes
know,
sense.
yeah, it's been a fun ride, but the world has changed a lot. I joke that, the world has conspired to make me look like some pioneer or visionary, which I'm not. But like I said, we were just very opportunistic and it's worked out great.
Well, awesome. Well, sounds like it's been a great journey and a lot of good opportunities and a few good twists along the way. So definitely fun to see that progression. So really with that, now as we have kind of reached the present day of the journey and had a great walkthrough of the journey it took, always like to wrap up each episode with the same couple questions. So we're going to jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
Well, the good news is I'm very good at pivoting, and I think most entrepreneurs have to be. There are always mistakes along the way. I think the hardest lesson I learned early on is that the people you start with are not always the ones that are going to grow with you. And like I said, I started with a handful of people who I knew from a previous life and knew their strengths, knew we worked well together. And I think my bias is I'm a very loyal person. And I want to give people the benefit of the doubt always. But I had a couple people early on who were with me in the early days who I would describe as kind of one trick ponies. They were really good at the thing they did, but very uncomfortable out of their comfort zone.
Hmm.
And I realized as we were scaling and growing pretty quickly, they were feeling kind of threatened or um, just out. The world was moving a little too quick for them. And I realized I was spending more time kind of managing them than focusing on keeping the pipeline as full as possible. And I probably should have cut them earlier than I did. I let them hang out a little longer than I should have.
Hmm.
Um, but as soon as I kind of shook hands and parted ways, the culture got stronger. It sent a really good message to everyone else on the team. Like, we don't need people who are going to drag us down. We want people who are part of our future, and that can be nimble and that get comfortable with a growth mindset. People that want to learn and grow. You know, the world has changed so much with technology, the tools, and people that are just too stuck in their ways or too uncomfortable learning new things really did not have a place in the company. And so that was really hard for me, but I learned the lesson. And as soon as they were gone, things really, people who are on the A team want to work with other people on the A team. They don't want to be with people that are, just not Debbie Downer, but like always trying to like go back to the stuff that their comfort zone. And so I would just encourage entrepreneurs to be brutally honest with when you see signs that things are
And
not.
yeah, and before you get too far into that, because that's going to probably segue pretty well into the second question, which I like to ask, and maybe you can pick up from there. But the second question I'd like to ask is now, if you are talking with a somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb you'd recommend?
So there's so many rules, but yeah, you definitely want to build your team around your strengths so that you can leverage their strengths and, divide and conquer. Because I think the best teams are going to win, not the best individuals. You want to build strong teams and you want to build a great brand. I'm a marketing person, so my bias is always going to be around the marketing and branding. But I think today in particular, if you don't stand out online, if you're not remembered, if you're not unique, special, and different, if people can't find you, you don't exist. So a lot of people think I'm not LeBron James, I'm not Taylor Swift or Serena Williams or Beyonce. Like, I'm not really famous. I'm not a brand. And I would say everybody's a brand today. So make sure that you figure out what's unique, special, and different about your brand and your business, and just reinforce those messages in everything that you're doing so that you stand out and people can find you when they have a problem that your product or service can help them solve.
No, I think that's definitely it's both on the first question, some easy mistakes to make of sometimes learning even who you can trust, you can, or even more so just who's in the right position, who's not, and how to craft that culture, as well as a great rule of thumb and a great takeaway. So I think all of the above is definitely insightful. So, well, now as we do wrap up towards the end of the episode, if people do want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend. Any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
My website, mavensandmoguls.com. It's mavensandmoguls.com. Or LinkedIn. You'll see my name is hyphenated, but on LinkedIn, it's all smushed together, no hyphen. Or you can just Google my first name, Paige, and the first name of my company, Mavens, and I'll pop up because search engine optimization really works.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners that are out there, you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Paige, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. You too.
Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small be shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat. Every step you're blazing trail. Inventive journey, never